Right, hey guys, how we doing? Back another video from Annie News, another ReZero Cut content video. This is going to be interesting because I loved this. Wilhelm's emotional battle with his wife. This was so interesting. I'm really intrigued to see what was potentially left out. I'm really interested to see the reactions that were in the original, in the light novel and that from his son. So obviously, it's his mum that he's fighting against, and I forget his name, but the grandson who was blamed for killing her in the first place. Um, really intrigued to see what the reactions actually were, or if they're very similar to the to what we saw in the anime. Let's get into it.
In a way, this sword fight between Sword Saint and Sword Demon was very similar to what it was like to love each other.
Yeah.
Yes, the crossing of their blades was an attempt to steal each other's lives, but the way each party poured everything into their swings mirrored that same single-minded focus they once had when they pursued each other.
Oh.
There were no distractions or anything else in mind, just the target in front of them and the courtship of their swords. Troubled as it may be, the love that existed between them before was one forged in that very same intensity. So, as much as Wilhelm disliked the idea of his wife's corpse being used as a tool, this impossible reunion had him wishing their battle would never end.
Oh, bless.
Still, every ounce of focus was required to maintain it, since one misstep would mean his death.
Well, yeah, as soon as he
Any
got distracted,
distraction
it was just
would prove
like,
to be
boom.
fatal here. It's for that reason every attack needed to be taken with the utmost caution, since not only did each carry the unhealable blessing of the death god, every single one was capable of putting an end to him. That was what made Teresia the strongest. She didn't need to kill the opponent to win the fight, she simply needed to land a couple hits, then her blessing would do the rest.
Damn.
Now, for Wilhelm, remaining focused was the toughest challenge about this, since a myriad of emotions swirled within him. As heart-wrenching as it was to see his wife again, more than anything he was angry at the villain who made her this way. His blood boiled at the thought of what was done to her. The fight had no room for such idle distractions though, so what went to save him from something so unnecessary was the next clash of swords reminding him of some words Teresia once said. It was a simple bit of guidance reminding him to always stay cool. This refocused Wilhelm's attention once again, allowing him to continue their dance onward into the night. Now, because Wilhelm knew Garfield had completed the mission, he was now allowed to challenge his limits once again. Just like how he did to become the sword demon before.
Oh, what is that? Because he doesn't. He knows he doesn't need to go off and help him. Yeah.
Once more would Wilhelm have to achieve a level of swordsmanship that surpassed hers. Last time he had done so by shedding everything he knew and becoming a sword himself, but now Teresia was the person whose moves he recognized the best. The way she carried herself now was the same swordsmanship of the woman he loved all those years ago. So every arc she chose and every point she aimed for, Wilhelm knew just like the back of his hand.
Nice.
Not once did he look away from the saint in front of him, so for a moment when the two clashed swords again, Wilhelm thought he saw something unthinkable. He felt he may have witnessed a small trace of emotion from her. This implied Teresia could see him too, but really it was nothing more than Wilhelm's imagination showing him what he wanted to see.
Oh, bless.
All
God
her
damn.
expressions, from her smile to her tears, now
Must have been
overlapped
so
the
hard
emotionless
to
face
do.
Wilhelm refused to look away from. They were heavy feelings he had no choice but to cast aside here. It was once he did that Wilhelm found himself capable of finishing the fight, an outcome which should have happened if not for the arrival of Heinkel. Had this been a complete stranger, then the unshakable focus of the sword demon would have carried him forward.
Oh, yeah,
It's
of course.
because this wasn't and this was his only son that Wilhelm lost focus and hesitated. He couldn't follow through in killing the mother of his son while that son was watching.
Yeah, of course.
Had he stayed resolute in loving Teresia alone, though, then this wouldn't have happened and the fight would be over. It's because he couldn't that all his focus was gone now. The previous sword demon who was fighting with a powerful intensity to save his wife was now replaced by a lone, aged swordsman incapable of returning to the state he was in prior. That's why what happened next was only
God
natural,
damn.
since, like I said in the beginning, distraction would prove fatal. It created an opening for Teresia to counter with an attack of pure efficiency.
So
She
sick.
knew
That's
exactly
that
where
is
it was she
slick.
was
That.
aiming for, and as a result stole the function of Wilhelm's leg without damaging anything else. It was a clean thrust that cut the muscles and nerves and nothing else. Wilhelm could only shudder at such a display of expertise, but whether out of frustration, aspiration, yearning, or love, that was something not even Wilhelm knew. What he did know, though, was that the fight was over and he was defeated. You see, with the blessing of the Grim Reaper preventing this hole in his leg from being healed, Wilhelm knew it was only a matter of time before he would bleed out and die. Such a revelation was completely mortifying, since while the pain was one thing, the inability to do anything was even worse. Despair was the only feeling that could describe his absolute powerlessness. Still, Wilhelm knew he couldn't die while leaving Teresia like this, so while he was well aware of the fate slowly creeping up on him, he had also resolved to bring Teresia down along with him. It didn't matter if he lost his head in the process. Wilhelm knew his next attack would strike Teresia down for sure. This, however, was an attack that would never come, since, just like Wilhelm, Teresia knew he would die as well. And for a swordsman as cold and calculated as her, it was simply instinctual to leave the prey she knew was going to die anyway. So, if you were wondering why she immediately switched focus to Heinkel, it was simply because Wilhelm had lost already.
Oh, mate. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I was a bit like, what? Why is she even bothering?
Now she was moving on to the next target. The blade Heinkel lost was the same one passed on to him by Wilhelm, but that would prove nothing in the way of the Sword Saint. No, the only thing that would was the hero Reinhard.
There we go.
In
Reinhard,
his hands was
that's
the
all.
ultimate blade, the Dragon Sword Reed, a weapon shrouded in mystery passed down through the generations of the Estrella family. It's not known how the first Sword Saint obtained it, but it was every Sword Saint after that would wield it. It was a legendary blade we know never unveiled itself unless the opponent was deemed worthy. So, for an object that's been said to have slain witches, dragons, and demon gods, only one thing was absolutely certain about it. Once the dragon sword was drawn, never had it been sheathed without first cutting something. So, while many past Sword Saints had gone their entire life without seeing the dragon sword, Herr Reinhardt would finally get his chance to. This would also be the first time Wilhelm could witness Reinhardt on the battlefield, since after leaving for revenge over 15 years ago, the discord that lingered between both them and Heinkel never resolved itself.
Look at that art. That's just absolutely fantastic. That is so slick. My goodness, that's so cool. Oh, everything.
Wilhelm never returned to face his family properly since, so not only was he absent for his son's eventual corruption, he also never got to see Reinhardt grow into the knight he was today. It's for that reason his presence completely overwhelmed him here, showing exactly what it meant to be the Sword Saint. It was a nostalgic feeling that reminded him of what it was like when he first met Teresia. Back then, he had witnessed the immense distance between himself and the person recognized as the pinnacle of the sword, and once again, that was the feeling he was experiencing here. The only difference between then and now, though, was that enough training had allowed him to reach the summit where Teresia was at, while no amount of training would bridge the gap between him and Reinhard. Wilhelm didn't even have to see the way Reinhard fought. He just knew the worlds they were in were completely different. Whatever summit Reinhard stood atop of, Wilhelm knew it wasn't even in the realm of achievable. So, with the ensuing face-off being something neither Wilhelm nor Heinkel could accept, Wilhelm could only shout in desperation while Heinkel descended into madness out of the sheer absurdity of what was unfolding in front of him.
Yeah,
He
must have been
simply
so
couldn't believe
confused.
his son was facing off against his mother in order to protect him. His mind couldn't comprehend what he was seeing. This made it clear Heinkel couldn't be relied on to do anything, so Wilhelm really did only have one option here. He could only beg and hope someone would listen. For Reinhardt, this was simply a job that needed to be done, as that was one of the many responsibilities of the Sword Saint. In fact, the dragon sword itself seemed delighted at the opportunity of being drawn for once.
Oh,
Even more so since it was facing off against one who previously wielded it.
damn.
Nothing else needed to be said after, so all that was left was the clash which would end things. Teresia would engage with the most perfect strike Wilhelm had ever seen her do, likely because the strength of Reinhardt drew out the latent strength still lurking inside her.
Right.
This was an accomplishment Wilhelm could only be jealous of, since with every fiber of his being, he wished it was him drawing that out of Teresia. What happened next was an unforgivable series of events, because for the first time in his life, Wilhelm would prioritize his emotions on the sacred ground of the battlefield. he would express his desire for Teresia to live, adding distraction to a duel where such a thing could prove fatal. This was an action that defiled everything a swordsman stood for, tarnishing the pride he valued so deeply. It was a vulnerable moment where a swordsman identity was thrown out the window and all that was left was the voice of one single man. It was a desperate plea hoping to save the person he loved the most. Reinhardt's blade would continue through regardless, slashing through the imposter in a brilliant arc the anime portrayed nicely. Now, this is where we'd get to Teresia's backstory, but that's a topic I think I'll save for a separate video.
Oh, fair. Okay,
To
cool.
keep the focus on the battle happening now, Teresia's awakening was pretty much a time skip for her. 1 second her consciousness was fading while hearing Pandora, the next she's opening her eyes to see a much older version of the man she married. She knew she didn't have much time left, but she was completely content spending it staring at the eyes in front of her.
Oh.
Reason being that she'd already said everything that needed to be said. If there was anyone who needed more time to think, then that would be Wilhelm and the words needed to fulfill his promise. So Teresia was fully intent on listening to those words in silence, but with the way Wilhelm was struggling to get them out, she saw no choice but to step in and explain things for him. Wilhelm may never have been able to express himself with his words, but everything else made it more than clear just how devoted he was. That was the essence of the final moments the two would share together. Now, it wasn't only Wilhelm who would be affected by this, since with the entire Estrella family all being present, the final moments of their grandmother, mother, and wife had left its scars on all of them. It was an emotionally charged scene that
Yeah,
clearly
that is
indicated
crazy.
the problems within the Estrella family weren't resolved yet. But yeah, that was it for the emotional battle between Sword Saint and Sword Demon. It wasn't anything as intense as the previous battles, but at the very least it resolves the storyline involving Wilhelm.
Yeah,
It was a
bless
plot
him.
I was invested in ever since the battle with the White Whale back in Season 1, and
Yeah, that
I'm
was
glad
all the
to
way
see it
then.
finally got the resolution it deserved. Let me know what you thought down in the comments, and if you liked the video, then feel free to leave a like. I'll catch you again next week with another ReZero video, so until then, ciao.
Ciao. Awesome. Yeah, it was nice to see Wilhelm's like kind of resolve there, because like I said, yeah, the whole white whale thing at the beginning was like that. You had it all built up from there. All those years ago, we watched season 1 of ReZero. Oh my god, and we never thought season 2 was going to happen in here. So watching cut content videos for season 3. We'll check out that next one next week when that comes out, whatever it's on. And until then, thanks for watching.